Hello YouTube, this is Mike Szabo, bass trombonist with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in Melbourne, Australia. And today I'm going to take a look at one of the trombonist's all-time favorite composer, and that is Austrian composer Anton Bruckner. Now last week we played his 7th symphony in the orchestra, which is always great fun. So I thought I'd show you one of the excerpts from this symphony, and for those of you following along at home in your parts, this is from the 4th movement, starting at letter F and going through about 5 bars after H. Right, now one of the first things we need to talk about when we talk about Bruckner is the style that we play the music in. Now I think among trombonists we probably get pretty good agreement that Bruckner is probably the composer we play with the most sostenuto style, or the most sustained style on the notes. And so it's really important to keep that throughout. Now you'll notice in the 4th bar we've got 2 quarter notes, low G's, with a little wedge over the top of those notes. And that serves to be basically Bruckner's version of a staccato in this piece. And the way it's usually conceived of is that it is basically like a full-length 8th note. Now the other pressure point in this excerpt, and indeed in all Bruckner really, is that we're making sure to play all of the double-dotted 8th notes followed by the 32nd note in proper time. It tends to sound really triplety if you're not paying attention, and so you really have to make sure you're doing those notes properly. Now the other thing that I like to talk about to my students is how we play these excerpts in the orchestra versus how we play them on an audition. And believe it or not, those are two very different things actually. In the orchestra performance, just like what I did last week, this whole section from F through till after H is a pretty hefty volume. I mean, you're pretty much, depending on the conductor and whatnot, you're pretty much going to be going mostly flat out, except for those few bars before H where it backs off a little bit. And then at H is where you've got the triple forte, which is marked to be actually, according to the composer, the loudest point of the whole excerpt should be louder again. And I don't know if you're able to hear that on the phone microphone or not. However, when we play it in an audition, one of the things we need to remember is to be kind to the committee that's sitting behind the curtain. And so we really need to measure our dynamics. So what I try to do, starting at F, a really good, healthy fortissimo, but not really over the top, really in control. And then once we get to G, where it says brighter or broader, maybe a little bit more, and slowing down a little bit more. And then once we get to H, the triple forte, that should be the loudest point, which presents a bit of a difficulty for our instrument because in the lower tessitura, such as a G, the bass trombone tends to really have a lot of power. And then once we start to get up towards the top of the staff, like such as from H and onwards, we tend to lose a bit of that power. So it's a challenge for us to really measure out the dynamics and give an effective audition performance that will give the audition committee a sense that you know how the music goes and how it should be shaped. Okay, thank you. There, and I'm back with an excerpt from the 2nd movement from Bruckner 7, and this is going to be starting the pickups to U and traveling through till about a few bars after W. And this is the long extended climax sequence of this movement, and it's very slow. So let's give it a go. It's very slow indeed. Most conductors will be taking this in 8 throughout, and one of the biggest challenges we have for this is because it's such an extended sequence, and especially for an audition, and I have played this in an audition, is that you really need to measure the dynamics throughout, just like we spoke about with the previous excerpt. Now this starts 2 before U, where I started at a piano, but really for an audition I would play pianissimo, because you've got such a long way to go and you want to give yourself that extra room to grow the dynamic. Let's see, 2 bars after U in the middle of the bar, we've got a printed mezzo forte, and again, for the purposes of an audition, I would play that mezzo piano, because you've got such, 6 more bars or so until you get to triple forte, and you really want to, measure that out as best you can. In the same way, 2 beats before V, you got a printed fortissimo. I'm playing a forte, basically. Really take it nice and easy. Basically until 2 bars before W, where that's when you start to give the real crescendo. And then 2 beats before W, where it really, the volume really starts to come on. That's right where the tuba enters, and the thing just gets bigger and bigger. You need to make sure that it's not too edgy and cutting, but you retain that big and broad, beautiful Bruckner sound. Now, the other thing that I didn't talk about in the previous excerpt is a lot of notes in Bruckner have like sort of an upside down V accent, or like a rooftop accent over the top of them. It looks like this. Now, in different composers, you might play that in a different way, more like some kind of an accent. In Bruckner, what it means is sustained. And since we pretty much sustain Bruckner all the time, I think of it in my own mind as a maximum sustain. So really, you need to take those notes right to the last, dying breath of the end of the beat, without being late, of course. And so that's what I try to do. Sometimes you don't quite have the breath to do it. Say, for instance, the half notes right at V, and then again the 3rd bar of V on the downbeat. But as best you can, that's what you do. And it really leaves a good impression. This is really a fantastic symphony to play as a trombone player. And I hope you've enjoyed my video today, and I hope you all take it easy. See you later.